everybody in Cyberland. Hey, it's your favorite Bow Wow. At least I hope so. I'm all doing things like that, coming at you with another great video. At least I hope you think it's a great video. But like always, I like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. And if you have not had the opportunity to like, please do. The more numbers we get, the more we spread the word, and the better the message gets across that our Yoruba religion is no joke, and it's here for the people, and it's nature, it's natural, it makes sense, it's logical. Just food for thought. And if you like my videos, please feel free to hit the subscribe so you can get the notifications that I got a new video. So with that said, I am sorry. It's been about 2.5 weeks that I've done a video. I've had people hit me up saying, hey, you've been slacking, where's the videos? And I said, you know what, you're right. I got a lot up here that I need to express out into Cyberland. And I'm sorry. But this month has been hectic. Let me tell you, Orumila's feast day. After Orumila's feast day, I did a ceremony for my father. I got a plante that starts tomorrow. I got animals in the back that I gotta go ahead and transport back to the house. I've been driving, I'm tired. Ooh, boy. Super busy. Not to mention, that's just the spiritual side. On the physical side, you all know I got a 9 to 5. I got a career, right? So both ends of that candle is lit. All right, but I do a very good job at executing the principles of Iyobe Mei or Iyeobe. So, you know, time management, organizations, all that stuff, I'm pretty good at. So, with that said, I would like to kind of jump right into our topic today. Right, and our topic is deep, guys. It's very deep. So here's a disclaimer. I need everybody to remove their feelings, right? And I want us to talk like mature adults. I want us to let's get the message across on what I'm trying to say, and don't misinterpret and don't take anything that I say out of context. You guys, if you don't know me by now, I'm pretty humble. I'm a decent guy. I'm very ethical. I'm very moral. So let's chat it up. So today's topic is Ifa Elders. How do we define elders? What does that mean, right? And our elders, right? Our elders are also our ancestors, right? Because they even have lessons that they teach us. They communicate to each and every one of us differently. And when you start talking about lineage, and we start trying to figure out, you know, how we communicate spiritually, things get a little fuzzy. And I think that we're getting into some bad habits because I see a lot of mixtures of lineages. And I'm not saying it's a terrible idea. I just think it's a bad idea. Because if it's not executed or exercised properly, we can create chaos. And we can truly destroy the lives of those that follow us, those that we are consecrating items for, those that we are initiating. So we have to be very methodical on how we do things. And I think the way to start understanding is by learning our past. Learning our past is understanding our ancestors. Understanding our ancestors leads us to understand our elders today. And then we go from there. So, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my elders. Alright, and I have a lot of God brothers in the Tampa area. A lot of God brothers that have migrated back and forth from Miami. I got a lot of God brothers that initiated under my godfather, who's Iba Elders, right? May he rest in peace. Miguel Alvarez Barrera, Osha. He had God kids everywhere. South America, North America, Europe, you name it. he had God kids everywhere. So I have a lot of God brothers. Not that if I don't mention a God brother or I don't mention someone, please don't take offense. If I know you personally, I'm sorry. I love you guys after death. But a couple of people that stick out to me is my Iyobong. My Iyobong is people. Right? He is now my godfather because my godfather passed away. Right? And now we talk about Ba in our house, a no kidding master of ceremonies that I learned a lot from. And whether he knows it or not, I acknowledge. And I used to watch everything he did, and I would take notes. A doodle, right, or wanimoso, and those are my elders, and there's a lot more, right? But in order to talk about elders, it's important for us to recognize our elders, right? So you notice I recognize my godfather that's alive, my godfather that has passed away, and eventually my godparents, my godfather will pass away as well. And it's going to be my job to find out who will be my spiritual leader, and who will now be my new godfather, right? So those are all things that are in the back of my mind. They always haunt me, right? Because no one wants to lose a loved one. But think about the impact that elder or that ancestor is going to have on us and our lives from the other side. So nonetheless, I prefer to have them on this physical plane, but if I don't, and when that time comes, they rest in peace. Okay, ancestors. In order to understand ancestors, okay, I want to put two things into context. Two things, and those are the two lineages that I want to acknowledge. Not saying there's not other lineages, and I'm not trying to say that I am a historian and I know what's going on in this world. But within Ifa, I always realize that we always migrate within two different realms. First realm is Africa-based, right? Africa-based. And anything that's Africa-based, when it comes to Ifa, I'm going to refer to as Isheshe for context purposes, right? African-based meaning that there was never a slave trade that pulled them out. That is where they're homegrown, right? Even to the point where if people went there for consecration, that's Isheshe, that's their lineage, right? They're homegrown, Isheshe. Then you have what I like to consider the post-transatlantic slave trade lineage, which we also know as Lukumi, which we see a very strong influence throughout the world, right? Just like Isheshe. So two lineages, right? Two lineages. But both of them have very specific traditions and cultures based on how they got to where they got to, and something as simple as geography, which makes you wonder. The things that they do in Africa, you cannot replicate in some instances when it comes to geography, right? When you talk about an Iroke tree, or you talk about the desert, or if you talk about certain animals, you're just not going to mimic certain things in Africa in some of the Western push through those slave trades, right? That's why it's very important for us to understand some of those differences that our ancestors, our elders went through as they try to understand and cultivate our culture and our tradition, right? Again, we got to understand our ancestors, understand what they paved, so that we can continue to march that walk and keep pushing our faith forward. So a lot of things changed, if you think about it, right? In Africa, they were dealing a lot with the Muslim crusades, the Catholic or the Christian crusades. They dealt with a lot of Roman and Greek influences. Then you had the colonizations of the English and the Spanish, and then you had the slave trades, right? I mean, a lot was going on in Africa, guys. And Africa is a giant continent, but you had a lot of things that were going on. So I'm talking from Ethiopia down to Nigeria. Big span. Now, when I speak, I can only really truly speak on my personal experience is Lokumi. That's my lineage. That's my heart. That's where my spirituality flourishes from. That's where my Ache and divine authority and understanding come from. Now, do I understand history? Do I study the origins? Do I understand that Africa was the place, that was the motherland, that was where things originated from, right? But do I understand that is no longer the source in Lokumi? I understand that. I understand that. The problem is I don't think everybody else is understanding that. And this is why the topic is elders. Because first things first, our ancestors worked really hard to cultivate, to preserve the cultures and tradition of the Yoruba religion. Within the Lokumi faith, we acknowledge that the slaves like Obaramei, Adeshina, right? When we talk about Miguel Febet Patron, Odika, we talk about Fatima Gomez, we talk about some of the greats, right? They preserve the faith that has gone leaps and bounds from when anyone could imagine. Just recently, I heard Chief Popola, who's a founder and a co-founder of several organizations, but also has influences on the UN Board of Ethics and Morals and Religions. I don't know the true name of that UN council, but they talk about the consensus. And a few years back, they did a consensus on the Yoruba religion. And between the Isheshe and the Lokumi, right, which includes the Olorisha worship and whatnot, that Yoruba religion, that concept, was number 5 in the world. That means we're doing our thing, guys. We are doing our thing. And many blessings to that. So we've grown. So that means our ancestors, man, they left us off pretty damn good. And our job is to preserve their word. So I want to bring this up. The slaves that left Africa and did what they did and came to this new world and were able to persevere and were able to preserve and were able to adapt to the change and were able to be flexible and were able to identify that certain things in Africa is not in Cuba or in South America, or things change, right? The platform has changed. Oh, and by the way, there's no more tribes, right? There's no tribal Batala, Chango, Chun. That doesn't exist. But what does exist is that there's probably a representative of each branch. And they're going to come together and they're going to create this beautiful thing called Osha. And then we're going to have the Bawalaos that are fighting their way through, understanding that ultimately at the end of the day, right, they created a system of belief that was adaptable to the times. And I think that right there says a lot. I think that right there tells us that we need to respect, because it's borderline disrespectful the moment we begin to try to mix lineages. One, because it doesn't make logical sense. It just doesn't, right? If you stick to your lineage, you'll be a lot better off. That's one. Two, the blood, the sweat, the tears that those slaves put into this work, even the synchronization. Think about it. Chango, St. Barbara, etc., etc. even that took a lot of work. Your ancestors will probably not necessarily appreciate the entanglement of it, or maybe they will. Depends on your perspective. Which brings me to the point where you got to be very careful on how you untangle that, right? I'll give you an example. When I, personally, me, explain and do my teachings of Ifa to those that follow me, I always mention in Isheshe, in Africa, in Lugumi, you'll hear me say that over and over again because I want them to understand both sides of the field. But what I truly want them to understand is that they come from a Lugumi lineage, and we will respect that lineage, past, present, and future, because that's what made us who we are. That is our Ache. Not to mention that there was an evolution there, right? There was something that happened that never happened. Thousands of years passed, and the same concepts were applied in Ifa and Mere Deregun and even ancestor worship. But when the slave trade occurred, something happened. That spark, that fire, created a system of Osha, but also they were able to witness what mediumship was, what spirituality was. When we talk about how we communicate with the spirits, a lot of things got to form, right? It was more than just Igbe in Africa. It was more than just Egungun in Africa. It was a lot more of communications with the dead in Lugumi lineage now than there ever will be probably in Africa. And that's not a knock in Africa. It's just that we cultivate it differently. And we have a mixture, right? You can have a Babalao that was, no kidding, in Palomoyumbe, 21 divisions, Santista, Boveda work, doing Misa Espirituales. You know what I mean? There's just so many connections there, right? And then they could have got crowned, and they could have had crowned their guardian Orisha, which we call our guardian Orisha, our guardian angel, right? In Africa, they call it Agbatori, right? That one who governs your head, who covers your head. But that's our lineage, right? We know our lineage to be guardian Orisha. We know our lineage to be godparents. We know our lineage to be very big on eguns and spirits. We understand that to be that. And that's what gives our diache. And that's why we want to make sure that we take care of our eguns and our spirits, and we do right by them. So that, again, I tell you again, elders, understand the ancestors and understand what they did for us so that we know where to go. All right. Enough on that soapbox for a second. Now, the next soapbox. Our current elders. I hope that this message reaches you. I hope that you're able to instill this into your followers in your spiritual house. Because it's going to be very important for us to cultivate and preserve and be very methodical in how you incorporate other teachings that are outside of your spiritual lineage. Because remember, your power comes from your spiritual lineage. Then I want to talk about an Odun. Right? We talk about Odun like Osha. Osha says that without an elder, there is no government. Without an elder, there is no spiritual leader. Right? Because elders are those who have knowledge, who have understanding. An elder is not a person by age or by lineage. No. An elder is a spiritual leader. Right? And when I say about elders, I'm talking about within our faith. A spiritual leader who can lead you. A spiritual leader who can tell you the philosophy of things. A spiritual leader who can help you through the consecrations. A spiritual leader who is there for you. And that right there is important to understand. So with that said, I say again, please remember, we need those spiritual leaders. And if you don't have one, we need to find one. Because our faith in Ikafum teaches us about unity. the unity of effort. No different than when the slaves came together from different tribes and created this beautiful thing called Osha, which we see that blooms and flourishes and has power. Right? That's a beautiful thing. So I say again, be mindful. Be mindful of that. And make sure you have an elder. Because you need an elder in order to build that house. You need an elder in order to flourish. Which now reminds me of a Pataki. About the 8 wise men and the 8 young Awonioruminas. And they were all working together collectively in construction of houses and pyramids and temples and castles, you name it. And the 8 elders had all the knowledge on how to better build, how to build and construct, and they would just give orders to the younger ones, and the younger ones started to, they'll get into their roles, and they started to perfect their roles, but they didn't know everything, right? And there was one specific spiritual leader in that bunch of 16 that managed everything. And when it came time to get paid, right, everybody gets paid accordingly, but the young ones didn't get paid as much as the older ones, because obviously that knowledge and that understanding was worth more than anything else. Not necessarily the labor was important, but more the knowledge and the understanding, right? So when you look at that story, we begin to kind of see that, we value knowledge and understanding. Okay. Now, the bottom 8 did not like that, because they were like, hey, we can make our own money. We don't need to work as a team of 16. We could break off, start our own business. We already know enough to be dangerous to build things. And they did that. They ran off and they started to build their own thing. They started to make money. But the problem was their construction did not hold up. It didn't weather correctly. There was some form of faulty construction of some sort. And the young ones would have to probably pay back more than if they would have just stood with the elders, because now they had to fix these problems. And some of the problems they couldn't fix, and they would have to call the elders anyway. So it was a vicious cycle. But that story tells us quickly that we need to respect our elders. We need to learn from our elders. We need to ensure that before we embark on our own journey and start building our own houses and temples and whatnot, that we know what we're doing. That Pataki resonates because it's what happens today. What happens today is people are so impatient to want to run and they forget to walk. We have a lot of people that are sprinting and forgetting that this faith is a marathon. Those elders are not old because, that's what they decided to be, and now they want to be an elder. No. They took decades to gain knowledge. They took decades to gain philosophy. They took decades of memorization and to sip on the water of knowledge. So I say again, elders, right? 1, you're going to need them. 2, if you don't have them, get one. Then I have a message directly for the elders again. Right? And for all of those who are coming up the faith and are coming up strong, you're going to need organization, and you're going to need time management skills, and you're going to need to remember not to sacrifice so much in the name of Ifa. We're going to sacrifice, but be mindful. You probably have a house, you probably have kids, you probably have a profession, and you got to balance all that out, and you got to be ready. So, if you want to be an elder, lead by example. Have all that squared away so that you could be the most productive person that you can be in order for you to be a better asset for those who are going to follow you. Because then we have signs like Obe Ofun, right? And we got signs like Olbe Otura, and they talk about elders. And we got signs in the Erete series as well. A lot lot of different signs that talk about a lot of different things about respecting elders and being and managing your time and leading. Something in the Lukumi faith that we talk about a lot is Olofin. Awa Olofin. And Olofin to us is the most divine divinity on this planet. Divine divinity on this planet, meaning underneath God himself. And we look at Awa Olofin as the governor of all things spiritual. Right? And every house has their mayor, which is that spiritual elder. Awa Olofin holds those elders accountable. And there's a lot of Patakis that we have incorporated within the Lukumi lineage that speaks on that. And we need to respect that, and we need to understand that. And we need to understand that to be an elder, that takes responsibility. That takes accountability. So with that said, please understand that as well. So I leave you with a few things. But I also want to leave you with one last Pataki, and that's the Pataki of Orumila, where it is 8 sons, right? And we talk about all 8 sons when they were giving respect to Orumila after many years pass, and they all get their own kingdoms, and one son, the youngest of the 8, does not want to throw himself down to his father, the elder. His father, but also his elder, right? And Orumila asks him why, and now his son says, well, I'm a king and you're a king. I have beautiful white clothes, you have beautiful white clothes. You and I are equals. And at that point, Orumila says, okay. And Orumila teaches the world a harsh lesson. He then leaves the world. And when he leaves the world, those 8 sons with those 8 kingdoms started to have issues and were trying to seek guidance. They didn't have the comfort of their father in order to take care of them. They didn't have the comfort of their elders to take care of them, which is a reality for many of us, because many of us are going to lose our godparents, right? Many of us are going to lose our Olus or our Iyalochas or Babalochas, our godparents, however way you want to refer it. And it's going to be your job to kind of seek out a new elder who's going to lead you. That's one. But 2, in that Pataki, the sons went back to where they know Orumila went to, and how Orumila went back to Olorum, the heavens. And they went back to this palm tree that Orumila had, and he transported himself back out. But at this point in time, nobody else could. Only the Eremoles, only the Orishas, the divine ones, were able to transport themselves back. And Orumila said he was not coming back, but left his sons with the palm nuts that came out of the tree and told them that I've never abandoned you, and I never will. And the guidance you seek will always be here in these palm nuts. And that's why until this day, we divine with palm nuts. The followers of Orumila, we're the representatives of Orumila. The Awo ni Orumilas, the Babalaos, representatives here on earth in order to help mankind. Because as any great elder would tell you, even though they're gone here, doesn't necessarily mean they're gone forever. And with that said, Ifa elders, respect them, look for them, allow them to guide you, learn from them. Never stop learning, because to the day we die, we will continue to learn. Challenge yourself, be organized, time manage. And with that said, Cyberland, Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche, it was a pleasure, and I'm glad I was able to get another video out to you guys. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Iburu Boya, Ibucheche.